Welcome to day 5 and the final day of the Sunflower Seams Zinnia Sew Along. Today we will be attaching our skirts to the bodice or attaching our romper bottom and adding the optional back ties. If you have missed any of our previous days or just now joining in, there's still plenty of time. Tomorrow, which is day 6, is dedicated solely to catching up. So do not worry if you're just now jumping in, we'd still love to have you. So first things first, you are going to want to sew 2 rows of gathering stitches along the top raw edge of your simple, ruffled, or tiered skirt. You're going to start at one of your side seams of your skirt and sew a gathering stitch 1/4 of an inch away from the raw edge. You will then sew the second row of gathering stitches 1/4 of an inch away from the first row. If you are creating the romper bottom version, you're going to do the same thing, except you're just doing it to the top raw edge of your romper bottom. So you will sew 2 rows of gathering stitches, first row 1/4 of an inch away from the raw edge, and then the second row 1/4 of an inch away from the first row. Now you will take your skirt or romper pieces and turn them inside out. Insert your bodice into your skirt or romper bottom piece. Open up your bodice so that you can see the side seam. Line up the skirt or romper bottom piece side seam with the bodice's side seam and pin. Do the same exact thing for the opposite side seam. Open the bodice to where you can see that side seam and place the skirt side seam on top of it. So now this part is a little bit trickier. Normally you can just pull your gathering stitches to the width of your bodice, but in this situation, as you can see, our bodice is really not the width that we see. When you pull it and stretch it out, you are then able to see how wide your bodice actually is. It is really important that you pull your bodice open as you attach your skirt. Otherwise, your bodice will not stretch at that skirt seam. So you'll sew your skirt on, go to put it on your model, and it won't stretch. So as we are pulling our gathering stitches and we are attaching our skirt or our romper bottom, it is very important that you pull your bodice so that it's not gathered. So pull your bodice, see how wide your skirt needs to be to the best of your ability, and then pull those gathering stitches. Once your skirt or romper bottoms are the width of your bodice, you will then want to adjust your gathers so that they are even. Now it's time to start pinning the skirt or romper bottom to the bodice. So as you pin, you want to pull your bodice, align your skirt with that raw edge as you do it without messing up your gathers, and then pin. I want to show that to y'all one more time because I know this part can be tricky. So once you place a pin, put your left hand on top of that pin, grab about 3 or 4 inches of your bodice and stretch it out. It'll stretch out to probably about 7 inches. And then lay your skirt on top. And just keep moving that left hand as needed. And then just find a spot, pinch it, pin it, And as you can see, even as you start pinning, that skirt is gonna kind of gap a little bit, but as soon as you get to the sewing machine and start sewing, you're gonna pull that bodice and it'll become even again. So continue doing that until the entire skirt is pinned to the bodice. Once it's pinned, take it to the sewing machine, pull your bodice as you go, and sew it like you normally would. You will then finish off with either a serger or a zigzag stitch. Once you have your skirt or romper bottom attached to your bodice, you will then want to turn the dress or romper inside out and press the romper or dress seam up towards the bodice. Then you will top stitch along the bodice and skirt seam. Make sure that you also pull your bodice and stretch it out as you top stitch. Once you are complete with that step, you can then steam your bodice really well to get that elastic thread to shrink back up. Now it's time to create and attach the optional back ties. Take one of your back tie pieces and lay it with the wrong side of the fabric facing up. Fold one of the short raw edges in 1/4 of an inch. Next, fold one of the long raw edges in to meet the center of the back tie and press. Fold the opposite long raw edge in to meet the other side and press. Now fold the back ties in half long ways, enclosing the raw edges. Press the back tie well. Now you will top stitch along the back tie, starting at the enclosed end and down the back tie. When you're finished, it will look like this. Now take your romper or dress and turn it inside out. On the back of your dress, measure 1 inch up from the neckline along the sleeve. Place a pin at that 1 inch line or 1 inch mark. Now lay the raw edge of your back tie at that 1 inch mark, lining up the raw edge with the edge of your sleeve elastic casing. Pin in place and then sew using a 3/8 seam allowance. Now you are going to trim away 1/2 of the seam allowance left from your back tie. Now you're going to fold the back tie over towards the center of the dress. And you will sew right along the edge of the sleeve, enclosing that raw edge. You will want to repeat the back tie steps for the opposite tie. Once you do that, you are done with your Zinnia. So if you made your romper, be sure to add snaps to the bottom so that they close, and be sure to remove any gathering stitches that might be exposed on your ruffle or tiered dress, as well as the gathering stitches at your bodice and romper skirt seams. I hope you had fun making your very first Zinnia. Hopefully shearing was a fun experience, not something that was challenging for you. If you have any questions, be sure to bring those to our attention in the Sew Along group or the Sunflower Seams Sewing group. And remember, if there were any days that you missed, tomorrow, which is day 6, is totally dedicated just for catching up. Then day 7, that'll be the day that you post your modeled or flat lay pictures. I hope you enjoyed.